Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flix Show. My name is Chris Wong. This is episode 405 of the Ping Pong Flix Show. Let's start off with a little bit of Power Rangers. As you know, I am a huge fan of the Power Rangers, especially the Power Ranger movies, potential movies that are coming up because Hasbro bought Power Rangers, right? They bought it from Saban, and they always work with Paramount Pictures, so there is a lot of excitement and a lot of anticipation for a Power Rangers movie made by Paramount Pictures. But this rumor is coming from a boundingintocomics.com. It comes from Mikey Sutton and his Geekosity Facebook group. Apparently, he writes this: Hasbro still has dreams of weaving together its properties into a single cohesive cinematic universe, and they would love for the Power Rangers to be a significant part of it. According to insiders I spoke to, there are talks of the Power Rangers coexisting in the same universe as the Transformers? What? No, this wouldn't be Michael Bay's Transformers, but the post-Bumblebee vision. A Power Rangers Transformers film could certainly ignite the franchise if done correctly. Then add ROM and Micronauts to the mix and you have the ultimate geek fest. But it all depends on Hasbro and Paramount Pictures, what their creative teams can conjure up. Now, this is a rumor per se, and there are he's claiming he has an insider on this. This is very weird, and it's certainly something that I don't actually see happening, but they do go on to say that Michael Kelly, the head of publishing at Hasbro, described the crossover at the time. We've done plenty of crossovers in the past, but nothing near this scope or scale. Our heroes, whether they are from Earth or from distant reaches of the galaxy, all have one thing in common. Their powers and abilities are based primarily on technology. We have been able to use this fact to build a natural and believable link between all the disparate characters. The result is a complex and dynamic world where all manners of conflicts and team-ups can and will exist. If you are a fan of Hasbro brands, your time is now. At that time, Hasbro didn't own Power Rangers, though, but they did own Transformers and G.I. Joe. There was talk about G.I. Joe and Transformers. They are going to do a Micronauts movie, as just announced today. I think the people who did the How to Train a Dragon are working on that. And so that's interesting, that even though that doesn't mean it could actually connect to Transformers and whatnot. But this aspect, this idea of Transformers and Power Rangers, I just don't see it happening, or I just cannot fathom that would exist. Now, we've done things like that before: Batman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in cartoon fashion, I understand. They also had Transformers and G.I. Joe. Hell, in the comics, they had Power Rangers and Justice League. But Power Rangers, Transformers, that's such a weirdly interesting, I'm not really bought on type of compelling idea, if you know what I mean. I am conflicted and confused by that notion. I understand the commercial success of having it connect to Transformers because most people love Transformers more than Power Rangers, although for me it's vice versa, and I could certainly see the commercial aspect of it trying to work it out that way. But as a fan of Power Rangers, I'm going to say no, I think they should be separate. I think each universe is able to grow and sustain itself without having to actually clash together. That's my own opinion, and you can go ahead and disagree with me or not. I don't care. I'm just saying that, to me right now, Power Rangers, Transformers, separate universe. I think there's enough content from either universe in order to sustain itself. So for me, it's a no, but it's not for me to decide. I don't have billions of dollars to put in funding a major studio, so it will definitely be up to Hasbro. It'll definitely be up to Paramount Pictures. If they ever do that, I am very curious to see how that crossover would actually work. And in terms of robots, Yeah, I guess that could happen. But it has to go beyond that, and that's just me. Next up is the DCEU. Some of the biggest news has happened today in terms of Matt Reeves, the Batman. This is coming from the Hollywood Reporter. The Batman targets Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. This is literally a day after Batman Day, so I think people were coming back to work on Monday and decided to finally give out Batman news. There's going to be a new commissioner in Gotham City. Westworld star Jeffrey Wright is in negotiations to play Commissioner Gordon, the classic ally to the Dark Knight in Matt Reeves' The Batman. Robert Pattinson is headlining what is being planned as a grounded take on as the DC Comics crime fighter. Casting is in the early stages for who's who of Batman's rogue gallery. Reeves will be directing from his own script for the Warner Brothers DC feature and will produce with his Planet of the Apes collaborator Dylan Clark. Now, the Batman is set for June 25th, 2021 release. Now, that is not the only major casting that is happening today. The next major casting is that, this is coming from Deadline, Jonah Hill is also in talks for Matt Reeves' The Batman. That's right. We are hearing that two-time Oscar nominee Jonah Hill is in talks to play a villain in the upcoming Warner Brothers reboot, The Batman, which stars Robert Pattinson and the Great Crusader. Deals aren't signed yet, but that's what they are hearing at this time. Of course, there's so many villains in this movie. There can only be a few that we can actually think Jonah Hill might actually be. There are rumors right now, not in this article, but there are rumors from other scoopers that Jonah Hill could either be Penguin or the Riddler. Now, Jeff Schneider from Collider, a scooper himself, he has said that Jonah Hill is most likely going to be the Riddler rather than Penguin, although a lot of people had fan casted actually Jonah Hill to be Penguin for a while now. Now that we know that Josh Gad is no longer in the running for Penguin. So this is an interesting reveal today for the Batman. Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon, Jonah Hill as either the Riddler, Penguin, or some other villain. Who knows at this point? They're still in talks. There's still money to be made. There's some things about like Jonah Hill asking for $10 million. Robert Pattinson is only going to be making $5 million according to fandom, and other cases like that. So we'll see soon enough what Matt Reeves says and what Matt Reeves reveals out. But for right now, for sure, it looks like Jeffrey Wright is in talks and may actually be Commissioner Gordon. He retweeted Matt Reeves' tweet the other day with the little monocle, so it could be, that's a big hint right there that he is definitely in talks, or at least actually getting to the final stages of the deal for him to appear in the Batman as Commissioner Gordon. Now, what do I think of this? What should I think of this? And everybody, there's some people who have been wondering what my thoughts on it. Well, first of all, I don't mind the whole race bending thing. I really don't. I mean, it has happened before in numerous movies, especially in Batman. Billy D. Williams was Harvey Dent, and then the next movie, Tommy Lee Jones was Harvey Dent as Two-Face. So, you know, what happened there? There's also the fact where Perry White, Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, Perry White is a black guy. You know, he's usually a white guy in the comics and in other interpretations of Perry White, but in the Snyderverse, he is a black guy. So it doesn't matter to me for that point. The most interesting aspect about Jeffrey Wright being Commissioner Gordon to me is that this is probably definitive fact, at least for me, even though we have the whole Billy D. Williams and Tommy Lee Jones thing, that this to me for sure actually clears it for me that this is not connected to the DCEU. This and for people who love Ben Affleck as Batman, you can kind of say in a way that he is not replaced, because this is a different interpretation of the Batman. And I've talked about this before. It kind of goes back into days where Matt Reeves came on to do the Batman after Ben Affleck said he didn't want to direct anymore. Went to the meeting room, got mad or something, left the whole thing, and then they kind of had to pull him back into Warner Brothers, right? And one of those things that they pulled him back was probably the notion that, Matt Reeves, you will be able to do the Batman you want to do. You don't have to connect with any of the DCEU. You don't have to do any of that. This is a standalone trilogy. And then you may say, well, wait a minute. Didn't Matt Reeves, back in August 24, 2017, clearly said that this Batman will be part of the DCEU? Let's revisit that tweet. He said this: geez, what I missed, guys? Just to be clear, of course Batman will be part of the DC universe. Batman will be Batman. And he's not wrong. Batman is part of the DC universe. Did he say it'll be part of the DCEU? The DCEU, which was formed by Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, Jason Momoa as Aquaman, Henry Cavill as Superman, Ben Affleck as Batman. No. Right here, it's almost as clear as day that he had never any intention to be part of DCU. What he's trying to say here is Batman is in the DC universe. What are you guys smoking? Batman's gonna be Batman in the DC universe. But he never said that Batman, his Batman, will be in the DC extended universe. And there you have it. For me, I've been thinking about this for a while, and today's casting news, it just seems to set in stone for me that this, in fact, is a standalone trilogy by Matt Reeves. So what does that mean? Is this a DC Black Label? It could be, if that's the interpretation of what a DC Black Label, meaning these are standalone stories that are not part of the DCEU. Or is this just Matt Reeves' standalone Batman trilogy? Then you also have the DC Black Label, and then you also have the DCEU. So confusing for us DC film fans, aren't we? But it does mean that we get to actually see different interpretations of said characters and their independent stories without having to worry that they're being taken over to another existing story. Meaning that in the DCEU, guys, Batman, Ben Affleck, is still Batman. Whether he appears again, that's a different story. But if you're afraid that Robert Pattinson just came up and took over that Batfleck role, well, then now this could be clear that because this is a standalone trilogy, this is Matt Reeves' own interpretation of Batman. Like he said in the other article, a grounded take, meaning this is not part of that, and you can be happy that Robert Pattinson's Batman is Robert Pattinson Batman. Ben Affleck is still Ben Affleck Batman. Just like how Christian Bale is his own Batman, Michael Keaton is his own Batman, and everybody else have their own kind of legacy that they can secure. I mean, there's still a little bit about the Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher thing. Is it a sequel? Is it not a sequel? But that's old news, guys. This is talking about now. So Matt Reeves standalone trilogy. It is happening, and I believe it's a standalone trilogy. In fact, today has secured it for me even more so. Revisiting Matt Reeves' tweet on that as well. I think that's the case here. That's why he doesn't have to worry about whatever happens in the DCEU. Now, on to other DCEU news is the Suicide Squad. According to Jai Courtney, the Suicide Squad will be a little different. There's that whole confusing enigma. Is it a reboot? Is it a new story? Is it a sequel? What's going on, right? So he said this that is very interesting to think about in terms of the Suicide Squad. While Jai Courtney, Joel Kinnaman, Margot Robbie, and Viola Davis are returning, we doubt that Gunn's Suicide Squad will feel at all like David Ayer's. While someone might think that a tonal shift is strange, Courtney says during an interview that he doesn't think anything will be strange at all, though he confirms that things will be different. I don't think it's going to be weird, Courtney told comicbook.com. It's kind of funny that we're getting it up to go again, and there's a bunch of new people and a bunch of old people too. It's going to be different for sure, but I think everyone's welcoming that challenge and welcoming the new energy in. I love David. I loved working with David. I'd work with David again in a heartbeat, but Gunn too is quite prolific and really obviously does know what he's doing. I'm excited to see what he brings to it. It's going to be tonally different, but very cool as well. The world has evolved from where we were at that point. He's going to have his own take on it, and it's going to be great. So just reading from this and just trying to interpret this a little bit, it almost sounds to me like he's saying, yes, the old characters are back, but no, this is a new story. This is not necessarily a sequel to the first Suicide Squad. This is a retelling or another story within this universe, having to deal with Suicide Squad members and having to deal with these people that we've seen before, and they're on a new mission. Now, he does kind of say that he's kind of like just playing around the idea of whether it's sequel or not, and about the tonal. He's being very political about it, and using great words about this just to get you a little bit excited for that as well. I guess the thing is, we have to wait and see, and actually when we watch the movie, have Joel Kinnaman, if Rick Flag doesn't know who Harley Quinn is, and Viola Davis seems like this is the first time they're going to meet Viola Davis and Amanda Waller, first time they're going to meet Captain Boomerang, then you know that this is kind of a reboot. But if you do come in and they already know each other, maybe they even allude to the last mission, then you can kind of say, oh, okay, this is an actual sequel. So I'm very excited to see which one are they really playing at. But at the same time, I'm excited to see a new story, a new mission for the Suicide Squad team. But like I said, this is a very interesting time in DC films, a very interesting time in the DCEU, DC Universe, whatever you want to call it. And it does get confusing, and it does get kind of freakish at some points, but you can't say it's still coming along. They're still making films. So for you as a DC fan, meaning the comics or just DC in general, I think you should be happy that they're continuing to make more movies within the universe. For the old DCEU fans, I think there's not much to go from here. I think a lot of this being pulled apart and taken through different directions now and their own interpretations. They're not really wanting to actually connect yet, I think, unless Wonder Woman 1984 and The Flash and even Birds of Prey spelled differently. But they're trying to play it lightly for now. But if you're still on with the current DCU, the before DCU, the Snyderverse, there is one movie that we can still champion, and that is the Justice League Snyder Cut. Now, I just want to let you know, Comic Movie Marks actually went out of their way. They went over to the Wizard World and actually did interviews with different fans and stuff. So I want to go ahead and check out this over 30-minute video. He said, and the title is "What Do You Know About the Snyder Cut?" They went to the Wizard World Comic Con, visit all these fans. They even got to meet Jason Momoa, who didn't really tell much except just kind of hyping the Snyder Cut a little bit. But I'll let you go and hear that and watch that yourself when you click on the video in the description below. Check it out, Comic Movie Marks. Great job, guys, and I'm so happy you guys were able to get a lot of people who actually knew about the Snyder Cut, or even converted them a little bit, or actually making people understand what the Snyder Cut is and that it's not just a myth. All right, guys, well, that is enough for tonight. I want to thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.